Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining my live sharing today. For those of you watching now, and also welcome to everyone watching maybe later, as this video will stay here and might even live on other places. So if you are catching me on my YouTube channel, welcome here too. I'm slowly trying to build that a little and share some content at least once a week. So as most of you have probably seen already and know from posts here or from the newsletter or talking to me, round 2 of the language of the body is starting in October 9th. And that kind of means in the lead up to that, I am trying to show up a little bit more consistently and offer my take on things and what that is about, but not really so much with the intention to promote the hell out of it. That's not really, I don't know, that just doesn't really feel so nice. But the point is, my intention is to share my take on things, and within that there might well be some helpful tips or something quite tangible, relevant, applicable to whatever it is that you do, and yeah, maybe even something new that you didn't know, as I also try to share a few actual insights to how the body works and what all this is about. And so with regards to the language of the body, I want to today actually just start with what that actually means. What is the language of the body? What do I mean by that when I say that? But I also want to share why that actually matters, why I believe that kind of work, a more therapeutic and trauma-informed approach to yoga as well as body work, really matters, especially nowadays. I want to share some actual real life examples of how that could manifest in our work, but also maybe our own practice. And maybe that resonates with you, or you might find, I see I also do this kind of work, and now I understand what she means by language of the body. And then actually also maybe offer some ideas of how that can be applied, just the principles and the ideas of that, with or without doing any particular training, if it does resonate. So I want to also share up some thoughts and ideas, takeaways really, for how you might be able to apply some of it if you wanted to, if only if this resonates. But I also do want to at some point talk about maybe some of the challenges, because it's not always so easy. But that's all to come. Today I'm just going to start, and that's going to be long enough, as I do talk too much, as you know. Really just talk about what it actually is. What do I mean by the language of the body? So why that name? As I was thinking about it, I realized that really that goes way back when I first started to change my own yoga practice, and when I discovered Scaravelli-inspired approach to practicing yoga. And I also then, because I literally just couldn't help, changed the way I was teaching yoga gradually and very organically and naturally. And I have to admit that I don't quite exactly remember who said it and when it was and how, so I can't really give true credit to it, but it seemed to always sort of come up in the conversation, especially I think it was around retreats when we were really diving deeper into that kind of practice, and often with people who'd never done that kind of practice before, and they felt quite challenged, more mentally than physically, because this kind of yoga is physically not that strong or difficult, but it was a very different way of approaching the body, working with the body, being in the body. And so the challenge was to take the head out of the equation. And somehow we were talking about it like it's kind of like learning a new language, because we were giving very different instructions to the body that initially the head was getting a little bit overwhelmed with, like, what does that mean? Using more poetic language, more kind language to the body, more metaphors, more imagery, also quite a level of detail of connecting things to like the little toe and the third rib on the left. So there was a lot of kind of processing to be done, and the problem actually was that the head is in the way with this, because if you let the body listen in the first place, the body would probably have understood. And so we were talking about it as if it is kind of like you're learning a different language, a new language. Like the body is also learning this language, and it's a process. And yes, while that at the beginning might be like, whoa, that's quite a lot to take on, but as soon as you actually relax into it, then okay, the language will unfold. So I remember the kind of the use of the term language in this context sort of come up really a long time ago already, and it was really about this ability of listening with the body rather than listening with the head. And then I moved into Thai massage. So later on, and a whole different context really, Thai massage and then osteo Thai, where it was more about receiving information of some form through the touch and through my hands and through that connection that you enter into on the futon with the person, with your client, and all sorts of different information coming through. And that could be just the information that body was holding some tension, or that their body didn't like something, or that there was pain or restriction or stagnation, as well as other things coming up, becoming aware of an emotional response or mental response in the receiver, or maybe there were images coming up, or words coming up, or colors coming up. And that was in my own practice, but obviously also teaching people to give treatments, also trying to put that across, and well, not preparing, but working with people who were then sort of exposed to receiving some form of information for the first time, and trying to explain that. And yet again, so here we are again really focusing on this listening. And here it's about being able to really listen without judgment and without prejudice, and to perceive information for what it is, and that is just information. And so there was this kind of other angle on a certain language that you're entering into through the touch and the connection through Thai massage. I was, and other people, my students. So there it was again. And then I at some point realized that I was bringing that back into the yoga practice, into my own practice, but also very much into the way that I was teaching yoga. And there was a real deepening happening from that. And thinking about it now, I think the deepening was coming from the fact that I probably now had a better understanding, a better orientation, simply through more experience and through more knowledge, but also of the body itself. And so there was a deepening because I could orient better. And that could be orienting around the fascia, it could be orienting around the diaphragmatic pressure system, around the craniosacral system, all of the body's rhythms that express life itself, better understanding and better orientation around movement and movement patterns, an orientation around what actually health was in the body. And so there was a deepening in my own personal practice, but also in the way I was teaching, in that, you know, not wanting to talk anyone out of coming to have a treatment with me, but it was kind of deepening in the sense that there is also a way to create all of these, you know, all of the conditions and the work in yourself, in your own body, with your own practice. And to me that felt going deeper, maybe because it's potentially a little bit more empowering. I don't know, but that's what it felt like. It felt deeper. And then at some point there was also a really noticeable shift for me through all of that, understanding the stories we hold in the body with more clarity. And I talk about these stories quite a lot as well, always in relation to the language of the body. The body stores quite miraculously, actually, to ultimately survive our stories. And it's just so that in day-to-day life, at some point, those stories may not serve you anymore, because they've become embedded in the body way past the situation the body needed the story for. And then that might have led to pain or trauma responses or anxiety or all sorts of other issues. And so from right back, exploring Scaraveli-inspired yoga initially for the first time, through the body work, through all of the deepening, through study and orienting through the body, and it kept going deeper and deeper and deeper. And it was again like learning a language. And I can think back of, my English is not, you know, perfect, but I speak it relatively well, and it is not my mother tongue. And I can retrace my journey of deepening my ability speaking English in just the same way. At first it was an exploration, and you're learning some words and some phrases, and then you had to do it at school. I didn't even have, I didn't particularly enjoy English classes at school, actually. It's something that I decided, okay, I should really just take it until the very end, because it looks a bit dumb not having English, which seems to be the thing that you really need in life. I don't know, that was kind of the idea a long time ago. To, at some point living in an English-speaking country, and it took some time from not really being able to understand what people were saying on the radio because I didn't have the visual reference, to at some point being able to enjoy reading a book in English without sort of just cross-reading it, and actually enjoying it for the language. At some point not having the mickey taken out of me anymore because I was actually getting the joke or the play on words, which, oh my goodness, to be like funny in another language is so hard. To then really appreciating the culture that is in language. So it's very, very similar. And maybe you might have a different reference and wouldn't call it language, and that's also fair enough. But this is maybe also why that reference stuck with me, because also for really all of my adult life, I was having this other language journey, not living in my home country. It is like the body has its own language, and through this work we were deepening the understanding and therefore entering into more understanding and connection and communication with the body. and it's quite extraordinary, and it's a beautiful language, what the body has to say. So when it comes to the approach, sort of wanting to take a step, this is kind of a little bit more how I maybe got to the word language, but now going more into my take on the work itself and my approach. And it's not like an approach that I created or anything. I don't want this kind of like, I'm not saying like the language of the body should be like a style of yoga or anything. No, none of this. This is just my take on things. And that is based on all of the different things that I have learned so far in my professional life and personal life. And it may also still change and develop a lot over the years to come. But where I'm at right now is that I truly believe that our bodies are designed to heal. Our bodies are designed to heal. And that is something that we really need to understand. And it forms the foundation of this approach to yoga, and actually also the foundation to my body work, very much so. The body has an incredible innate intelligence. It already holds the information of health. In craniosacral therapy, it's kind of called the blueprint. There's a blueprint. So that means that healing is very much a process of self-healing and an individual process, because it is about reconnecting and going back to that blueprint that is already there. And we as teachers and body workers or therapists, our role, in my mind, is to hold and facilitate maybe an environment where someone is able to feel safe enough for them to return to their true nature. Because the reason they have disconnected from that, and that maybe that blueprint is covered up with all sorts of layers here, and I'm simplifying this to explain the idea of it, is that at some point the body wasn't feeling safe enough and had to adjust, adapt, escape, overcompensate, etc. And through that developed a whole bunch of stories that got embedded in the body, patterns that got stored in the body, that when chronically stimulated can continue and spiral and actually develop into quite severe health conditions. And so at the root of healing is to really bring the body back to feeling safe again. And that is our role, to create an environment where people feel safe enough to do so, to explore the option of letting go of this holding or not. And it's really not a rational process. This is deeply embedded in the body. So we need to learn how to communicate with the body on this level. Going back to the language. And when the body is able or decides that it is safe enough, it might stand a chance to reconnect with its true nature, with that blueprint, with the story of the health. And maybe not completely, but gradually, bit by bit, a bit more. And to re-enter into more resonance and harmony within as well as with their environment, that they might feel really challenged and not kind of that they actually don't fit into their environment. So kind of coming back into attunement, and I spoke about attunement before. And that does require work. This is not the extensive list, but some examples of what I believe the work required is to find ways to undo to undo those habitual holding patterns, to disturb some of the habitual holding patterns, but in a safe way, so that we can explore there is maybe an option that is different to how I'm maybe protecting my body, where I have an irrational fear of movement or whatever it is, to undo those habitual holding patterns and habitual tension. Anxiety, stress, emotional tension that we hold in our bodies and can lead to all sorts of issues, has also become habitual. So it's not so easy to undo that because we don't even realize that we might be holding that. Re-educating the body and remapping movement. We've lost so much innate intelligence, purely because of our modern lifestyle to start with. So we're not actually setting ourselves up particularly well with the lifestyle that we now have in a concrete world, sitting on chairs, wearing shoes, just to name the obvious, never mind all of the slightly bigger stories that might have happened in your life. But there is quite a bit of remapping and re-educating required, because our innate intelligence, just through day-to-day normal life, just getting through our day, is being numbed down over and over and over. So there's actually a kind of a level of groundwork required to improve the conditions, I guess, facilitating again an environment where we can express movement more freely, where we can relate with our environment with more ease. So that would also be something else, this reconnection to our environment that we have felt challenged in, as in maybe even to the point where we feel like we don't fit into our environment. Because if we did feel like we did fit, then we'd feel safe in the first place. There is a kind of, I'm just going to say, rewiring of the nervous system required, so a regulation of the nervous system, since what I'm describing here in simple terms is actually all a neurological process. So understanding that, and actually I truly believe that a strong part of that is also education. And we might not always realize that, we could also educate our students and clients on some level. I do actually feel there's a big power in that. But for sure, we also need to understand that process, of course, as facilitators. And well, ultimately, I guess, kind of in a way, rewriting those stories. So we are changing the stories of pain and the problem to a story of health and balance. That all requires a much deeper level of awareness. And I feel like I can say that because, I'm continuously at points where I feel like, okay, I've delved right into that. I've really got so deep with my level of awareness and presence. I got it. I understand that. There's other things that I still need to learn, but that I've experienced it. I felt it. I practice it. It's there. And yet, on a very regular basis, I come to a new door that suddenly opens, and I'm like, oh, okay. There is a whole other level of infinite depth of awareness to explore. And it continuously happens. So I, for myself, also know that I have more deepening to do. And so I feel like I'm okay to say that. It's not to say you're not going deep enough or you didn't get it. No, it's just that we're always at exactly where we need to be, and that is never the end. So to just open ourselves to that is available, and that is an option, and a potential, I think will, put us straight away into a slightly different position, actually, because it also means that, we're kind of taking the ego out of the equation a little bit more and accepting where we are at and saying, and there is a lot more. So there's a little bit more humbleness to it. And it requires an ability to truly, truly listen. And that is really not that easy, to listen without judgment and without prejudice, because we all have an opinion, we all have our own stories to map things again, we all have our own experiences, and we think we know this, that, and the other. And so we very easily add judgment, an opinion, an assumption, etc., to whatever we hear. And to really simply listen without that, that is quite a skill. And I have not mastered that completely yet either. And again, I'm not sure that there is 100% on that. I actually believe that that's probably very much like that awareness that there is just more and more doors that will at some point open to an even more infinite realm of listening. But with the listening comes the ability to actually hear what the body has to say, but to actually maybe also understand what the body is trying to say, because we are beginning to learn its innate language. And maybe I should even say, like, we're beginning to relearn, because it seems odd, the idea that we never spoke that language before, and I think we probably did. And it just sort of didn't get nourished, so therefore we forgot it. And yeah, like, as I'm just saying it now like this, that just seems like a really beautiful process. And just the process itself already seems, or feels just now as I'm saying it, like it could hold so much healing potential in the first place. Just to actually come to a place where we'll understand what the body has to say to us. So I guess that's how I came to talk about the language of the body. And as this training course that I'm running for yoga teachers is really my sharing of this kind of take on things and how to approach the teaching of yoga in a more therapeutic way and a more trauma-informed way, it seemed like a good name for the training. Any thoughts, questions, opinions, contradictions, disagreements, whatever it might be, your thoughts on it. Always love to hear them. Also, really love to hear from those of you who have worked with me and maybe what I was just sharing was like, yeah, totally get it because I can see it in your work. Or maybe somebody, if you were listening and you were like, oh God, I've been working with you, but now you're saying it like this, now it's making sense, or now it's not making any sense anymore. I don't know, like, but those of you who have been working with me who know a little bit my kind of yoga, it would be really amazing to hear a little bit of feedback from you guys. Please comment below wherever you're catching this video, where I might have shared it. Always really love to engage in a conversation. And thank you so much for watching this. Take care.